sorry to cut you off, but it reminds me of another bit of yours that is burned into my memory about the horror of morning radio. Because we all know and then you go there and you're like, it's this fucking, I forget the name you gave.
It was a Zoo Crew.
The Zoo Crew, but you gave a name. You gave them like character names, like Woody and the Beaver or something. and then you're like, oh hey, and they're like, all right, it's time for the Friday morning fart song. You're like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be involved in that.
And you're drunk when you go there. They're used to getting up at 5 a.m.
every day,
and being sober and coming into the studio
and they're hearing
doing all
the
that
horn
stuff
every few minutes. They're really up.
And you have been. You've gotten 3-4 hours of sleep. You get up, you're slamming coffee. You're still drunk, and you have to go in there. And these guys, and it's not the same sense of humor. There's nothing funny about it, and they've got all that energy too. And they're bouncing, feeding off of each other. This guy's nuts, and they get shit wrong. This is pre-Wikipedia, so they have half of your credits are wrong. And now you did something funny. Oh, what was it? You did something funny about some sneakers. I don't know. Maybe I can't. What are you talking about?
It's the worst.
and then they get angry at you for not playing along. They do. This is way preferable.
When I have two that come to mind. One was. Actually, 3 of these. One of them where they go, all right, like, so we got one more break, and then you'll go in, and what do you want him to ask you? And I go, whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And they go, no, like, what specifically do you want him to ask you?
Because we haven't done any work.
And I go, whatever he wants, I'm down for whatever. And they're like, he needs you to tell him what to ask him. And I go, oh, I don't like to do that. And the panic that washed over this person's face, they were like, what? So then I guess they're in the commercial break. The commercial break starts. They bring the guy in and he's like, hey, is everything all right? And I go, yeah, everything's fine. And they go, well, he's like, well, is there, I think they wanted you to, answer some questions. And I go, and I said, whatever you want to ask is fine. And he goes, well, I mean, what's been going on? And I go, I don't know, man. I've been on tour, I have a kid. He goes, you have a kid? And he's like, write that down. So he starts doing the pre-interview.
Right.
He's like, has that been...
As they're in the commercial break.
As in the commercial break. And I'm like, yeah, we could talk about that. I go, again, anything you want to talk about, we can talk about. And he's like, oh, okay. And we go in there and the whole thing's fine, right? It's fine because I was like, you can just ask whatever you want.
Yeah, these guys aren't used to the concept. It's such a foreign thing. Outside of the work, it's fine. But the idea of having a conversation, talking to a person and just asking them what questions that might seem relevant to the reason they're occupying your next 7 minutes.
They can't do, like, we're the ones where they would refuse to do even a moment of prep. And that happened to me in Hartford, Connecticut, where I got there and they basically, the club dropped me off and they're like, all right, you're going to do this show. Okay. And then the people who host the show kind of did the whole like, looked.
When was this?
This probably was sometime between 2009 and 12, somewhere in that.
You're coming up. I'm
not like a big draw. And they, they're like, this is what really moves tickets. And you're like, okay.
And the club's sending you out. You have to do it.
You have to do it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, is anyone going to talk to me about like at all? And they're like, just wait in this room. So then the guy brings me out and it's him. He's like, I don't know. He's just kind of a fucking boner of a dude. And
I mean, he's in Hartford.
Yeah, he's in Hartford.
Let's be honest.
Doing the morning bullshit
he's not
show.
Happy.
He's definitely not happy.
He's not happy.
The girl that's with him is 30 years younger, and she's totally like just disconnected. I mean, she doesn't, I don't think gives a shit. So instead of, I mean, not only are they not like, what are we going to talk about? He literally goes, all right, when we come back from the break, just do your thing. And then he just like keeps writing down. And I go, what's that? And he goes, yeah, when we come back from the break.
Do your set.
Just take over.
Yeah.
And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, that's what we do here. Like, you're the comedian. We come back and just do whatever you want. And I go, I'm not going to say much. And he starts to like, go like, what do you mean? I go, I don't do, like, what do you mean take over? Like, you think I'm going to just start going crazy on the air? Like, that's not like what I do.
You should have said like, okay, I guess, you're not 100% familiar with my act. It's juggling, but all right, get me something and just on air pretend to juggle.
The best was that he cited another comedian. He goes, so and so was here a couple weeks ago, and he took all his clothes off. And I go, how did that play on the air?
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. And then he just started to scramble. And he was like, where are you from? I was like, I'm originally from Cincinnati.
There you go. That's a start.
He's like, all right, so let's write it down. And all we did for the interview, which was, depending on how you want to look at it, a disaster or hilarious, I just made up everything.
I'm going to go with hilarious.
I was hilarious to me.
That's all that counts.
Yeah, exactly. And he was just like in such a panic, called the radio or the club and was like, he was uncooperative and
wow.
He wouldn't I was like, okay. And that's when I started doing, pretty soon after, a character.
Yes, Bert showed me
DJ Dadmouth.
Yeah, and I have such respect, and I mean that goes so much of what I do, and certainly used to do before anybody knew who I was. Like I would fuck with people all the time.
I bet you did,
and but not to that extent. You had a whole character. I love it. I love the kind of what you're talking about. With when you go to the Morning Zoo crew and they don't know a fucking thing about you. And Bob Odenkirk and I, when we were doing press for Mr. Show, and nobody knew who we were pretty much until we were off the air. But every time we had an unspoken understanding that if the interviewer, and this was easily half the time, didn't know who we were, had just maybe read whatever press that they, the summation or whatever that the person got from HBO, and truly didn't know these like you guys are now you guys are supposed to be funny, or whatever. So then we would just make shit up, and I mean nothing, not a true word would ever come through our lips for the whole thing, whether it was live TV or whether it was print, just making shit up. And it would you can look at. I'm sure there's tons out there of old interviews where we just made everything up. And we're doing it for each other and trying not to break, but trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah, and it's like nothing more joyful than remembering that, I bet.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah. It's the best. And especially when you're in the moment. And they're just going, okay, all right. And somebody sent me, I can't remember who it was, but somebody found an EPK thing I did for Kung Fu Panda where the person, it was TV. It was definitely a video because they sent it to me. It was like some YouTube thing. And they sent me this thing where they're asking me questions, but they truly don't know anything about the project or me. And I just made the whole thing is a lie about my character was a dentist who got transformed, who came from another world. It was live action, and then I get to go through this two-dimensional thing. It was just 15 minutes of nonsense, and then
it's the best.
and they're going along with it. They're like, oh wow, that's interesting. So what kind of dentist or whatever? They're just asking questions that it's so much fun.
I eventually got to the point where I think actually with the character, it's that I started to sell tickets, right? And they'd be like, I'd get there and they'd go, tickets, your shows are sold out. I'd be like, okay, cool. And they go, don't forget tomorrow morning we're doing Good Morning Hartford, and I go, wait, why are we doing that? And they're like,
absolutely not.
And they're like, well, it's important. And I was like, for who? And they're like, well, we have a relationship. I go, so this is for you guys?
Yeah.
And they were basically like, well, we need you to do it. And I'm like, okay. So that's when I would show up in character. And the best part about it, the thing that I had the most fun doing is they would go, the press people would be like, what is going on? Why are you wearing this? And then they would say, so tell us about your shows. And I go, I don't really focus on stand-up anymore. And they were like, and it would say like Funny Bone on it. They were like, what? And I go, it's all about the after party, I go, I'm going to be DJing at this club. And, if you want to go to the show, it doesn't matter. It's really about the club. We're going to throw it down. And you'd see in the background, the club would be going like, why are you doing this?
That's great.
Bert and Tom, Tom and Bert, One goes topless while the other wears a shirt. Tom tells stories and Bert's the machine. There's not a chance in hell that they'll keep it clean. Here's what we call Two Bears, One Cave.